And I always speak about, an idea. An idea will float in the ether, in the air, and in the intangible. And unless you capture it by writing it down, by drawing it, you take the intangible and make it tangible.
Yeah,
you capture it on paper, and it comes alive.
That's exactly how I explain it to my kids.
Yeah.
You are born an entrepreneur. And I think regardless of you having, even if you had come here, I think you would have still been who you are.
Big time.
I think what happened in those early years, you were just allowed to explore much earlier than you would have done here.
100%.
Because I certainly see it in everybody in this room, especially having heard your story and certainly knowing yours because I've watched you. That inability to stay in a box. I would rather eat cheese and biscuits for the rest of my life working for myself than to go and work for somebody.
Nothing grows in your comfort zone.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And only thing that's going to happen stepping out is something.
Yeah.
And I always say this, do something and something will happen.
Yeah.
Do nothing
Nothing.
and nothing will happen.
So welcome to another episode of The Business of Church, and we have another guest for you. So you will be familiar by now with our hosts, Cory and Des Stewart, founders of Good to Give, and our host for the Business of Church podcast. And we have an amazing guest with us, Pat Reid, who is a serial social entrepreneur, a minister, has a 30 years of experience with business and ministry. So we're excited to get into it with you today, Pat, and we've got lots to talk about.
Thanks for the invite.
Excellent. So before I let you guys just get into the conversation, let's kick off with, what's your story? What is your story, Pat? Where did it all begin in ministry and also business?
Okay, let's look at ministry, as you say, which is very vast and very wide, because I think business is a ministry.
Nice.
And it should be seen as that, and not something separate from being a Christian, separate from what I do at church or on a Sunday. It's really a continuance, and I think that's how it should be seen. I'm a PK, a pastor's kid, and so I was brought up in church, and church is all I know. I didn't ever leave or go out and take a time out or whatever. I've always been in church, and so
you didn't take a time out?
No.
We all got to take some time out. I too am a pastor's kid. Time was taken.
Well, no, I didn't. I mean, I'm not saying I was perfect all my life.
Yeah.
Definitely not. But no, as in terms of leaving church, of straying from the Lord, no. I never did. So in essence, when you're brought up in that atmosphere, you just know the path that is generally taken. Although I didn't tread that usual path, because I widened it in essence. And entrepreneurship and business, I think entrepreneurs are born.
We are born.
And I think
True.
I think in essence people can acquire various attributes of it, but it's something endemic within you that, you just think differently. As I always say, how do you spell entrepreneur? R-I-S-K. Because you're just built with a desire to take a risk, a desire to cut another path, a clean path. You're going to go the hard way because no one's ever been there before. So let's go. You're going to discover. You're going to create. You're going to explore. So I think there's a bit of sort of a feeling and a desire that you have, a passion that burns inside, that cannot be extinguished.
Yeah.
Just can't be.
It's interesting that you say that. I mean, in my version of that is you can see what the future is for yourself, whether it's the idea that you've had, and you can see it clearly. And sometimes you can see it so clearly, you're confused how other people can't see how clear it is, and you're, almost disappointed that they're, the amount of times, told people about a business idea, like even with Good Together. I remember telling a friend of mine about it, and he just thought, what's that? There ain't no money.
Yeah.
There's no money in that.
100%. 100%. I remember visiting an old disused warehouse, and I was like, right, we'll put this over there, and if you can imagine this there, and over here we'll put that, and we'll create this, and my friend's like, can't see it. But it's what you see with your mind that others miss with their eyes. It's something that you're seeing in the spirit.
Literally.
And that's what I'm saying. It is a spiritual gifting rather than just, someone needs to be teaching me this. From a child, you will have that. Something that you've seen what's not there. I think it's something God-given.
I mean, we've spoken about this, and we put it down to faith and the correct use of faith. We're prepared to take that step over the ledge when there is no step.
100%. 100%.
And it's funny, you talk about, and like you just alluding to there just now, you explain something, other people don't see it. We've had, ever since we've grown together, we will talk about stuff, and we can get excited in an empty room about what we can see, how we see that future. I mean, really excited. You'd think by the time we've finished, it was already built.
Yes.
Yes.
But that is the fact that those things are built and created in your mind. And that's what faith is, you know what I mean? It's something things hope for. It's something you've seen in your mind which is not tangible. And I always speak about, an idea. An idea will float in the ether, in the air, and in the intangible. And unless you capture it by writing it down, by drawing it, you take the intangible and make it tangible. You capture it on paper, and it comes alive.
That's exactly how I explain it to my kids.
Yeah.
It's like they're gifts from God, from the universe, however you want to sing. And if you take it and make it real.
Yeah.
And it's the people, because we're all given them. Many people get them, but they just look at them and let them float by. You know what it reminds? I don't know if you've seen the movie Avatar.
Yeah. Not the second one or the first one?
The first one.
Yeah. When
he's walking along the tree when he first meets Nateri, and those things start to float down around him, and his first reaction is to back them away. And she's like, no, and they all they all land on him, and it's kind of like that. They're around, and people just ignore them.
Absolutely, and that's it. That's the difference between. And I might tell the story if I have time of how I remember my cousin saying to me, Patrick, why are you like this? And I'm like, what am I like? And she said, well, why are you the only one with the business? You've been running for 30 years. You take all these risks, and you go the opposite way that everybody goes to. You just live on your own terms and your own means, and you do as you please, and you just go and make happen. Why are you like this? And none of your siblings are like that. None of us as cousins, we're not like that. Why? What? I was like, I don't know.
You couldn't explain it, could you?
But listen to this. I about a few months later, I told my sister, and I said, my cousin asked why am I like this? And I was like, I don't know. She said, I know. I was like, you do? He said, yes. And this goes back to what we were talking about, Des. That when I was born in Jamaica, and at 6 months, my family came to England, but left me. She left me with my gran. That's the best thing they could have done, ever. I was then brought up in Jamaica, and I went to Kingston at 6 months with my gran. She loved me. She gave me what you know, what she gave me all the love and she gave me whatever I wanted. But I had the freedom to live in, you know, Jamaica. You're living outside 24/7. You know, it's great weather, and all I remember is just happy days and great days. And I learned how to fly and make a kite and fly a kite. And this is, you know, I'm talking about. I left England at 6 3/4. I knew how to make slingshot. I knew how to make a kite, knew how to fly a kite. I'm shooting birds in the hills, and you know, all these things I learned from 0 to 6, and the freedom and the allowed to make mistakes, allowed to risk and push the boat out and do things. And she said, we went to England and we weren't allowed to do anything because we didn't want to offend people, and because your parents, no, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And they became risk averse. Me, I was like the freedom of the world, you know, and I was full of risk. I was full of whoever I was. And by the time I came here, almost 7, I was already the man that I was going to be. They said, show me a child from 0 to 7, 0 to 8, I will show you the man. And that's exactly how I was. And, you know, my poor mother was then trying to bend this tree, almost. No, get back in the box, be like your other siblings, you know. No, it was too late. I was too big for that box that they were trying to push me, and I was already who God had intended for me to be. And I was free to be able to fail and get back up again, and I weren't afraid of failure.
That, you see now that statement there, you know, I know because we've spoken about this thing so many times. Fear of failure is paralyzing. I see so many people guiding their life purely by the, you know, the fear of something going wrong, rather than the optimism of what could go right.
100%.
And you know, if you can't get over that fear, entrepreneurism is not really going to work.
Well, you know something, you know, it's something you said, and I think you said, you know, you are born an entrepreneur. And I think regardless of you having, even if you had come here, I think you would have still been who you are. I think what happened in those early years, you were just allowed to explore much earlier than you would have done here.
100%.
Because I certainly see it in everybody in this room, especially having heard your story and certainly knowing yours because I've watched you. You know, that inability to stay in a box. You know, for me, I always saw, I wanted to see more light at the end of the tunnel than someone was prepared to give me.
Absolutely.
And I remember talking to you, Kat, and I remember you said one day, I would rather eat cheese and biscuits for the rest of my life working for myself than to go and work for somebody. And you know, well, in my early 20s, literally, I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was always doing something that was just different to other children. You know, whether it was that I was starting a football team, I'm like 8, 9, and I've got a few mates kicking around the park, but I've organised it. You know, up to kind of what we do now. But I've never been able to see myself ever cocooned. It just couldn't happen.
But you know what you said there? You couldn't see yourself being that. And it's a vision. Again, something that you can't see physically, but you're seeing in your mind. It's your mind saying, I'm better than this. There's more in me. And that's the godness in you. Because God blew into you the breath of life. Man became a living soul. He said, I'm going to let us make man after our image and our likeness. And we don't know there is godness within us. He blew in us.
Potential.
There it is.
Potential.
There it is.
It's interesting what your cousin said, because then you come over here and really the education system, the environment is bred and built to create workers. Right, so after the war and so on and so forth, and it's you know, let's get some people, let's get this economy going, and so on and so forth, and you sacrifice your time and your energy into building typically somebody else's vision.
Well, there it is.
And and the thing is you know, it's like, I liken it to I'm mentioning movies now, but remember when they in the Matrix, when Morpheus is and they're saying, look, and they're saying we never free a mind too young. Oh no, too late. Too late.
Yeah.
We never, because they find it hard to adapt. And I don't know if you're an entrepreneur, you've had conversations with other people who are not entrepreneurs, but who you see their abilities, you think you would be a great business person, and you have that conversation, and you might see a little flicker, and then by the time the conversation is gone, you come back to, and you may even get a, you know what, because I've always wanted to do and such and such and such, and you know, when you see them next, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
You know what's important from what you said there in my life? I worked for British Telecom for the first 13 years of my life, of my grown life, when I left school. What happened was this: I was thinking of leaving and taking redundancy. And I went to the bishops and, the people of note, those spiritual people who can sing. And I said, bishops, do you think I should leave and start a business? No, man, no. You done a good job. Good money, man, don't leave.
Exactly.
And all the spiritual leaders were, no, man, you're good money. And literally, I went to one of my friend's house on a Sunday, and he was having a barbecue. So after church, we went down there. And I told him, I said, I'm thinking of taking redundancy. He said to me, Riggs, that's what they used to call me, Riggs, you better take the money and go with it, because you don't know what they might be planning for you. And I heard God in that. I heard God in that. And he's not saved. He's just
the still quiet voice. Right. You have to listen.
100%. I heard God in that. And the next day, I went in, redundancies, and bam, business blew up and went off, And if I'd taken the path of fear, no, man, don't leave the good money you're going in. I was earning good money. Don't leave it. Good money, man, don't. If I'd taken that advice, and these were the spiritual leaders, but what I then discovered was that the element of business, entrepreneurship, and risk is not what they're about. They're about safety, be safe, stay in your comfort zone, be happy with it, be satisfied. And it's not a knock on them, but it's what they know.
But isn't that strange, though? Because it's still a risk to say, I'm going to become a leader. The Lord has given me this calling, and I'm going to go out there. I remember my mum, it was part of Church of God of Prophecy, and my mum spoke to the then minister, Elder Burke, and said to him, look, I'd really like to not necessarily run a church, but just to go out there and do some teaching. And he said, no worries. He said, look, go into, and he said, close to where we lived at Fulham at the time. He said, if you find something down there, just run a few Sunday school lessons. And he went from that to church, to running a few churches, and it just blew up. And what I'm saying is she took my dad, me, my younger brother at the time, my two older brothers. For them, they felt they saw the light and they were off, right? And as far as my mum was concerned, she had, this is the thing, it was a risk in that she was paying. She took the burden of paying for this place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this hall, church hall. She was going to buy all the bits and pieces and whatever support she could get. Okay, she got. But the risk was Sunday after Sunday, people know people. So that entrepreneurial spirit is there. Yeah. It's just not fostered.
Can I just say, what about, a lot of biblical teaching is based upon the fear of God. You hear the word fear of God quite often. So maybe the elder generation, being fearful, and obviously coming from these are people that have, in your case you have, but have coming from one country to another, and maybe that was their entrepreneurial thing, but the fear aspect, because my mum, like you said, my mum, when I told her I was leaving to start my bit, oh God, people just try and fail. People just try and fail. Those were her words. And the thing is as a young man, she believed it, and that sat with me. Exactly. That sat with me.
Yeah.
To the point where I couldn't actually tell her that I'd left. She'd just see me going in the morning in my suit and so on and so forth. After business was started to go well, I said, you do know I don't work for Computer Centre anymore. I work for myself. God. You know, how is business?
but it's funny though, because the Bible also teaches you that as a child of the King, as you know, a Christian, all things are yours. You know, so I don't know where do we?
Where does that come from? And exactly, and I'm you know, reading Leviticus, Deuteronomy at the moment, and where the children of Israel are going into the promised land, and God says to them, "You will be strangers, but I've given. They will be." He said, the Bible says, "They will be bread for you."
Come on.
They will be bread, right? And so sometimes I think, where does that culture come from? Because it's not biblical.
Do you know what? That, as you say, the Bible says, "Greater is He that is within you
Then he that
than he
is
is
in
in the
Yeah,
world."
yeah.
And we quote those scriptures, but we don't live those scriptures.
Right.
And this is the point, right? You're going to a land flowing with milk and honey. Remember this in I think it's Genesis 13:2. And Abraham was very rich in
Right.
cattle and gold and
Right.
this and that.
Yeah.
And that's a rich enough. Very
Very
rich.
rich, because your richness was actually determined by your cattle, your livestock.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's told to leave house, leave the and go to a place wherever, you know, in the dark. But it's about faith. What do you see? Land flowing with milk and honey, and you know, talking of its fruitfulness, its abundance, its blessing. And you say, you know what? It's either I believe him or I doubt him and stay in my comfort zone and say so. But they, as I say, you know, nothing grows in your comfort zone.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And only thing that's going to happen stepping out is something.
Yeah.
And I always say this, do something and something will happen.
Yeah.
Do nothing
Nothing.
and nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Your mum was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And without making millions and having to build big business and so forth, the step of faith that she did is entrepreneurial. And that's what faith is all about, seeing something with your mind what people miss with their eyes, because you're seeing what isn't there.
Yeah.
And that's all about creation.
The thing that we're sort of revealing in this podcast is that a lot of the people who we're encountering in our business lives are demonstrating this lack of entrepreneurship. But we've established just through the fact of what they're doing that they are entrepreneurs. They're natural born entrepreneurs. And, you know, I mean, maybe not everybody who's going to the church. And even then, if you say to yourself, well, if you just to believe in God, you've got to have a certain amount of faith. So therefore,
Absolutely.
you know, but people go there for their own reasons, you know, whether it's fear or whatever it might be. So it's not always thing, but certainly the people that seed and start churches.
Those are the people.
Those are the people we're really talking to and saying, look, you know, you are an entrepreneur. Maybe you lack the management team and the confidence and experience to be able to take that transition.
So just before you go on, I'll let you, I mean, that's what this podcast here is all about. Yeah, we're basically talking about business of church. So what are the fundamental building blocks to making sure that your church can run like a business? And obviously we're looking at entrepreneurship in the very first instance, recognizing that they're all entrepreneurs that start the church, but the journey, and you were just talking about, in essence, the team, the management team that helped. I think
massive point you made there.
Can I just say, tell us about that? You know, your origin, because you had a church, and you created something which is a blueprint for other churches to be able to emulate. Tell us a bit more about it.
Okay, so in essence, my passion was always young people. The business I started was older people. And the older people brings in the money. It's more business orientated in terms of, although it's still an enterprise, a social enterprise, but it'll bring in money easier than the children element, which was where my passion was. And, you know, I started PJs in 1992, and in essence, that was a home shopping business. And so after every 4 years, I start a new business. So 4 years later, it developed into home care for older people and for people with disabilities, etc. 4 years later, I bought a disused warehouse, and in buying that disused warehouse, I turned it into a community centre, and that was where I was able now to service young people and children and offer them activities, after school activities, even summertime holiday activities, etc., weekends and so on. And that's where we utilised this resource we had when I bought this and built it into a community centre. We built 5 recording studios. I built a nursery in the garden, massive nursery from the ground up, and converted all those rooms into offices. And in the warehouse space, it was massive hall for the church, and a dance studio as well for our activities in the community. And what happened in essence was, whereas you used to have a youth service, you know, or a youth campaign or whatever you want to call it, you know, youth convention or conference. What I looked at was, you know, I'm inviting those children and young people in the community, because in essence, they're the ones in need of this, you know. And so I invited them in from schools, from the community, and there were all the people that were here after school and the weekends and so forth. And they came in and they were like, oh wow, this is great and so forth, because they didn't see at that time the church element, because that happened on the Sunday. But Monday to Saturday, it was community. Now I'm pulling them in on a Sunday where they're seeing the spiritual element of what happens here. And this is what happened. And something remarkable happened. When the youth leaders were like saying, okay, we're going to have a youth conference. And so we want to know if any of you got any exhortation. Exalt what? What? These are children who are totally unchurched.
Yeah.
They have a recitation. Oh, wow, really what? They don't know what we're talking about, because we've got our own language.
Totally different.
So when we're what a 5 minutes exhortation from anybody for that, or they didn't know the language at all. They didn't know. And so they were totally excluded from what we had built. They couldn't sing, they couldn't preach, they couldn't even play instruments, you know, a lot of them, and so on. So all the activities we're saying which was going to happen at this youth conference, they were totally excluded. So I literally said, well, look, we've got to include them somewhere. We totally revised what youth convention and youth conference looked like. So we said, well, look, this is our topic, okay? It's about, you know, the fight of my life and so forth. I said, oh, yeah, I've got a nice YouTube clip that can fit that topic that you're saying. So they said, okay, we'll add this youth clip. And then they said, oh, we could do a little skit, you know, a little play to refer that. So, I can build the backdrop, and I can do the lighting, I can do the sound, So we found a place for all of them. I can write a spoken word, and you know, and they all found place for themselves, which were totally untraditional. And what happened was this: the mere set that they built became the platform. We built a boxing ring. The boxing ring was the stage where the pulpit was in. And the theme of that conference, they built it. They built the set, they built everything around it, and it stayed there. And they preached in it, they sang in it, and everything happened in this ring that they built, because it was the fight of my life. So they built a boxing ring, and they had a play around that, and it was a magnificent play. And we have seen something we never saw before. The lights went off in their show, and I'm talking, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because we thought differently. We weren't doing as we've always done.
And you was open, you was reaching out, not looking in.
Thank you. And right there, the kids from the streets, as we'd call them, had a part to play, were invited their parents and their aunties, and I'm going to play, and I'm doing this, I'm going to do this, and I've got a spoken word I wrote, and all of a sudden, this thing that we never knew before, it wasn't traditional, came alive and was totally awesome, and place was full and brimming. And what happened every night of that, or there was always a night in that conference where the Holy Ghost showed up and floored everybody up, saved and unsaved. Never seen this happen before. Oh my God! We had one of our favorite groups there came in, New Ye. I don't know if you heard of New Ye. New Ye. New Ye. Yes. What's the guy name that leads you, New Ye?
I don't recall.
Oh, my good friend, he'll kill me if he watches this and I don't call his name. But he's awesome. He's energetic, and New Ye themselves, they're full of it. They're like a Hezekiah Walker 2.0. You know what I mean? A UK version. They were awesome. The anointing that they brought in that place, and totally untraditional. It just wrecked the place. And when we saw
that could have never happened.
in good old traditional,
could never.
Another item from Manchester.
That's right.
Another item
that's
from.
Right. That's right.
So, no item.
Never have happened.
Thank you. It was amazing. It was different. It was refreshing, and it was a total blessing. This is when you're thinking out the box. And similarly, as you said, when we went into the streets and into the schools, and we saw the needs there, we moved on to the needs and met those needs. And that's what I'm saying about Christ. Christ didn't operate in the synagogues, and he went in a favor with the scribes and Pharisees and the priests and so forth. His ministry was on the street. He met the need. He healed the people. He touched their lives. He changed their bodies. He fed them everything. And that's exactly what we did. We had the biggest youth center in the whole of Croydon. The chief exec called me and said, "Listen, I need to speak to you because you're doing something that we're not." I said, "What's that?" He said, "You are attracting hundreds of kids that we're not." We've got 4 or 5 youth centres he had. He said, all 5 of ours put together doesn't match one of yours. We ain't got the numbers that you're getting with your one outstripping our 5. And the amazing thing about that is the workers that we had who were fearless in going to those guys who was in the gangs and so forth and speaking to them. And because we had built 5 community centres, 5 recording studios in our community centre, the music attracted the kids that were there like flies. And believe me, the impact we made on their lives, the very police came and told us, "Listen, you're here from Monday to Tuesday. There are no crimes in the community on those days. Please keep this up." The fact what we were doing was what Christ was doing, meeting the needs of these young people. What are those needs? And because they're hungry minds, needing to be steered.
They need something to put their energy into.
100%.
They need something to aspire to channel their dreams into.
100. And I think the thing is that the church becomes a private club where we invite other churches,
People they feel comfortable with.
Exactly. Those in our branches or those in our organization. And we wouldn't even go out to other organizations and other branches who even represent Christ, but we don't know them. And that's what I looked at and saw, a fear of the unknown, but also a fear to invite the other people on the street in mass into your place. We don't know what we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how they'll react. But the freedom to say, these are my young people. I love them. They need to hear the word of God. They want to go to heaven too. You know what I mean? And what happened over the years that we impacted the lives of these kids, we then started an alternative education provision. And when I saw, I don't know if you all know the PRUs, pupil referral units. PRUs? When kids are excluded from schools, they're sent to PRUs, a pupil referral unit. And the kid's called a seminar. I'm going to seminar. And the thing is that I went and had a look at them and I was like, bro, this isn't good. I don't like the model. I don't like how they're being treated. I started one. It was an alternative education provision. I turned mine into an academy, an alternative academy of learning. And what I have discovered was an amazing thing. Because you're not doing what the others are doing, you're doing something new and different. I discovered along the way that 85% of children who are excluded have just experienced bereavement and loss. Bereavement and loss. And I remember a school called me up and said, listen, we want you to come and take this girl. We don't want her ever to come back. She's so rude. She's bad. We don't want her back. Just come and take her. And I'm charging them a good little figure for taking them per day. But the issue is this: I said to the teacher, "Do you know she's experienced bereavement in the last couple of months or so?" She said, "Well, her dad died, but he was in Jamaica, so that don't really count."
Wow.
Okay.
Lack of understanding.
Lack of empathy.
When I went to always visit them before they come visit my home with their parents and so on, and we spoke, and I said to the mother, I said, "Can you give me a couple of minutes with just speaking to the child?" And I asked that child, "What does your father mean to you?" And she went all teary-eyed and she said, "Listen, I was brought up with my dad. The first 8 years of my life, 9 years, was with my dad. And then he sent me over to my mum. But every night before I sleep, I always pray for my mum, for my dad, and for my brother, who was still back in Jamaica." And she said, "But now I can't pray that because he's gone." Now, the major relationship was with that father, but the school didn't know that. They didn't have the time to find out those nitty-gritties and find out what that death meant to that child. But I did. And what we literally concluded after a few years was that these kids are in pain. They need healing more than teaching. They're not ready to learn because of the pain they're going through. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs became so apparent in what we were running. Because initially, I didn't provide food until one of the child that came in the morning, they said, "He's hungry." And I said, "What's the problem?" "He slept in a park the night before." And so I then had to provide a meal for everyone, not just one.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone. Let's do dinners and so forth, etc. Now the issue is the hierarchy of needs said, let's find out what the pain points are. Let's reach those. Let's heal those before they begin or even want to learn.
But they can't. They can't learn.
They can't because their basic needs
Hasn't been met.
has not been
And
met.
sometimes they don't have the communication skills to articulate
Well, I was going to say
how they're feeling.
I was going to say it's hard enough for a mature person who actually already has all the skills developed.
Thank you.
In bereavement, So yeah,
100%. Because the issue is this, Des, that no matter what age you are, you lose a parent. And remember, losing a parent doesn't necessarily mean death. The dad might have walked out,
Yeah.
and you never see him again.
Yeah.
A
In
child
some
always,
cases, that's
always
almost worse.
a child always blames themselves.
Yeah.
What did I do? I could have done this. I shouldn't have been bad. They always put the blame on themselves. Why? Mum and dad didn't get us something I did or something I said or something like that. But that's also a loss, and the same bereavement process happens. No matter what age you are, you lose a parent. You'll take time off work. It may be days, it may be weeks, it may be months or years. I remember when my dad died, without me even knowing, as you said, Des, without me knowing, I lost that creative ability and the entrepreneurial spirit. I lost it for 9 months. Every week I was trying to start again. Right, let's start this week again. Come on, let's go. No, right, okay, new month coming. Right, let's get this going. I couldn't function. I was flatlined creatively for 9 months.
It's interesting you say that. When I lost my dad, I tried to bury. Des and I recently just ended our first big business that we'd built, and we was in the middle of sort of rebuilding ourselves, and then my dad passed, and I remember sort of trying to bury. I remember Des saying to me, you know, respect, you can take time out, but I see you're still trying to keep things together and keep things moving. And I was doing that up till one point, and we was in the office, and there was some other guy in the office. He just said something to me, and I just lost it. And I was cussing, and tears were coming down my eyes, and I was like, and then I said something about my dad, and you realize in that moment you haven't really been able to process it. There's still something broken or something wrong,
100%.
and you're not at your best. You think you are, but you're not at your best.
And we are adults with coping mechanisms that we've built up over the years, and probably not to this depth, because we all go through a period of grief and bereavement, which puts us into a place where we can't function. But we take time out. We can't go to work. We're in bed till late. We make up in the afternoon and roll out and get something to eat. What do we say to our child? Come on, Johnny, you got to go to school. You need school. And we send him into the firing line with his broken-hearted and sensitive, that when the guy just takes his pencil and he punches him in the eye and breaks his teeth, broke up his... That's you're bad, you're naughty, that's overreaction. No, let's kick him out of school. And so
and half the time they're just sometimes they're waiting for that opportunity.
And that's because no one took the time out to help him through that grieving process, that bereavement process. And that's what we found out. This whole classroom we've had there, and we didn't know, we were 3-to-1, one teacher to 3 students, no more than that, because of the needs. These are people who are super sensitive, and we really need to meet that need before we can begin to teach. And that's what we rolled back. And we found out so much things about the recording studios which we had that became music therapy. And the way how those kids were healed through that process was amazing. And as I said, we stumbled on so much solutions, but we found out what was the causal issues. What caused this behavior? Well, the child is not bad. Something has caused a reaction like this. And we drilled down to the core issues.
For you to be able to do that, you would have had to have built trust. And so by bringing them into an environment that they wanted to be in, giving them something that took their mind off it initially, building that trust, and being able to then go on that journey with them, so that you may have found that just in being there, they start to open up and start to talk about what's bothering them, or even in the music, you see the lyrics and you see it, and then you start to realize, I see what
Cory,
you're talking about.
You've hit the nail on the head. That same child that the school didn't want back, and the teacher said we don't want him back. I sent her in the studio. I don't know why. I just sent her in the studio with Noel and worked on a track. At the end of that term, she came in and called all the classes. Please, can you all come into the studio? We went to the studio. We all sat down. She pressed play. 4 minutes later, there was not a dry eye in the room.
Wow.
She wrote a song about her father. Our hearts melted. And we could all empathize and appreciate. We've all got fathers of some sort, whether present or not present.
Yeah.
And the lyrics of the song was healing, Cory. Healing. And right there I saw that spirit, the lowness, the depression, whatever was on her, broke.
Yeah.
Totally lifted.
She
And
paid tribute.
set her free. And this is over 10 years ago. And I'm watching her now on Facebook. She's a big star out there singing, and I'm so proud of her.
Yeah.
You should be proud of yourself.
But the same studios there were launching pads for Stormzy, for Dave, for all of those guys who all passed through those studios. Seeing Croydon, they're Croydon babies.
Yeah.
But the issue, as somebody said, it is about giving them that opportunity and to exercise their skill set of what's in there, and the expression that's in there releases all that oppression.
So, listen, I mean, it's fantastic story. I'm so grateful you've come in today and shared that certainly with us. What advice do you give to churches now?
That's
What's
very
the
good
advice?
point. Very good point. My issue is this, that churches are and used to be the linchpin of the community because you could find answers there, you could find whatever you needed, solutions, okay? Yeah. Now, I think we've become very fearful and not open the doors, just widely and let them in. Some people have said, because every church in the community, you always find a couple of people over in the corner there who are, they're not a full penny, they're not a full pound. There's a couple of shillings missing. But why? Because they feel safe to come in. They know they're not going to be ridiculed. They know they're going to be accepted. They're going to be loved. And I think even in our alternative education provision, the 3 vital ingredients that's required. Number 1 is love. Number 2 is care. And why I say care is this, because every child knows when someone really cares for them, or you're here for the money. You don't really love me. You don't really care about me. You're here for the money. And that's what, and the third thing, love, care, and time. Time. You can give your child presents, you can give them money and things, but they want you. They want your time. They want your attention. They want to know that you really love them, and that's expressed through the time spent with them. So, number 1 is that open your doors, open it wide. Again, it's taking the risk because you don't know who's going to come in, but you have trust in the Lord that the Lord is going to order someone step into that fold. Who requires whatever you have to heal them, to touch them, to change them, to encourage them, to lift them. The answer is in that church building. But the risk to open up the doors is massive for the pastor, especially if they're not entrepreneurial.
I'm glad you just finished on that, because I wanted to connect that too. So in that building, you had offices, you had a nursery, you had studios, and you had the church. So assuming those offices and the nursery was bringing in income, that freed the church of the burden of having to then demand, I won't say demand, but to be totally dependent on the donations. Exactly, keep going back to the well. Exactly, right? And that is one of the key, that's why you're here on this podcast, is because we are trying to get churches to realize that to have a beautiful situation like you created there, and that lovely story about that young lady, you need to be free of the pressure of having to rob Peter to pay Paul. The amount of ministers we get calls last minute of the month. Oh, we need money for rent. We need can you give us an early payment? Can you do this? Can you do that? That's all time you're spending that you could be spending that time that you spoke of. How are they going to sit down and be free of mind to be able to, and even creative, when all you're thinking about is how you're going to pay the rent next week, how you're going to pay this and pay that? That is why it's so important for the leadership team to sit down, and if they haven't got the skill set within them, to sit down with people like us or whatever and find those people and say, we need business solutions and support and everything in here so that we can build this and get this additional revenue stream in so that we can do our work and focus.
And I think the issue is they don't utilize the asset of that building that they have.
Exactly.
But just opening your doors for 4 hours on a Sunday ain't going to help you. And 2 hours on a Wednesday for Bible class or Premier. And then all the other days it's empty. That's a huge resource you have. Why isn't there a nursery there? Why isn't there an opportunity to meet with councillors, to meet with the council, to meet with the people themselves? It's a huge resource that is income generating. And if all you shoot for is just 3 hours, 4 hours on a Sunday morning, you don't need a church. You're going to hire something for those 3 or 4 hours. If you have that building, you must see it as a resource. And that's why the team, your church team, your church board should not only be of deacon so and mother so and I can't answer. No, it has to be wider. Get people who are a skill set far outreaching yours. I remember somebody said, you shouldn't have anybody who's smarter than you in your business.
That's total opposite to that.
You must never be the smartest person in that room, or it's a wrong room for you. Bring in the skill set that complements yours. That you're good in the Bible, you can open that up and so forth, but you open up your bank account or your accounts, you cannot read what it means and so forth. Bring someone who's an expert on there, who's good in money, who's good in finance, who's good in business, good in entrepreneurship. And that entrepreneur sometimes isn't respected because you know what? He's a crazy thinker. That's what I have to drive in, man, pulling me in and talk there, man. The issue is he's like that because he sees wide, he sees bigger, he sees different.
Often enough, the money that the church has saved up, the only thing that they understand being able to spend that money for is to buy a building. You could talk to them all day long about ways and risks to take to buy that building. People will remortgage their house, they could buy the building. But you talk to them about a business venture that can make even more money so that you can really go and buy a business. That's one step too far.
And that's what I find out, I'm saying the 3 elements in business that you want. Number 1 is the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the one who's going to take that risk, going to go out there and make it happen. And I always say this, in terms of people, how do you know you're an entrepreneur? You're that person who wakes up in the morning and before lunchtime, you got 10 business ideas, that's come and say, I want to start this, I want to do this. Because people don't know what they are, who they are. If you're waking up with an idea every morning, by lunchtime, you've got another 100 of ideas and so on, you're an entrepreneur, mate. The other person you need is a manager, right? And the manager is a man who's risk averse, but he manages finance, pins the pen, make sure the book balance, and no, we're not spending more than so because we have to pay the rent and this. And he's good at that. And he's cut this and cut that. Make sure it pay, right? You need a man like manages finance, he manages operation, he manages system, he manages people. And I say that with a small p. But he is good in his place, and he's not going to overspend. He's not going to take that risk, and he's going to make that book balance, and you're going to stay in the same place for the rest of your life. You're not going nowhere.
He's not growing the business.
No.
But he's keeping the status quo.
Status quo. You're gonna be what's the word when you're your money is operating.
Investment, students.
Forget the word coming and going, but you're going to be stable financially.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a penny over. You're gonna
penny under.
you're gonna put that. But and he's good for that, and that's what I'm saying. The two entrepreneur and the manager will always butting heads all the time.
But they need each other.
They need each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because unless you're reigning as entrepreneur, God, like, you know, and you're bankrupt by tomorrow.
Exactly. They can leave a trail of debris, so, you know.
Dead bodies all along the way. You need each other, you know, and it, you know, you can tit for tat, you know, you got to give a little there, you got to rein in there, and so forth. But they need each other. They work together marvelously. And then the third person you need is that worker ant, that soldier ant. And these guys, they're not interested in any managerial
give me my
position.
instructions.
Just tell me what to do and I will do it.
Point me in the direction. Push me that way.
And I will do it. It will be done. What time you want to do it? But what time you want me in tomorrow? Bam, bam. That worker ant is going to make sure it is done. And that's, I don't want no responsibility. I don't want no money.
And you know something, as a good leader, and we've had to really work this out. You have to understand those people. They have a role to play. You can't really do without them. But sometimes as leaders, you sit down and you moan about them because they don't have initiative.
Bishop, what wrong with your man?
Or we've been in the wrong situation where we've had
given them more to do than they can handle.
Exactly, including them in on entrepreneurial conversations.
Yeah, they don't
and
want
it's just
it.
going.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested.
And they don't want to be involved, and we're trying to think, but this is
Well,
exciting.
listen, man, you must-
Exactly. You should be loving this. You should be honoured. You should be
Judging them by our own
standard. Exactly.
What to sleep in the corner if I went,
Exactly. You're drifting off.
Yeah.
You should be honoured to be involved in this conversation. Oh, God.
just a different passion.
Just different animals.
Totally.
I'd say.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying in terms of knowing your team. You know, the manager, you wake up in the morning and I want to start the business, but I don't know what to do. And what the entrepreneurs got hundreds of ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I think and I can't think. What
Listen, no matter how many conversations the entrepreneur has with the manager and gives him plenty of ideas, next week he's still waking up in the morning with
How
the
many
same
conversations have we had with
Exactly.
people
Don't know
collectively,
what to
individually?
do.
Exactly.
Cannot.
So everyone's got a role to play.
Absolutely.
And you've got to assemble that team.
Yeah.
And that's what my
Respect their roles, yeah.
coach says. Every aces in their places, and that's how you get. I speak of this especially with in a marital and relational circumstance, right? I say, you know, they must have happiness and they must have harmony, and harmony is something where on a piano you're playing a note here and there, different color notes, different sounds, and different depths of, but play together. They make beautiful music, and that's what harmony is. All the differences coming together in their places, in their timing, and play together. You get beautiful music, beautiful harmony, and that's what a marriage is. That's what a business is as well. Knowing to put all the right aces in their places, have harmony.
Yeah, we
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think that's a
great
good place
note to end on.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've
Actually, I want to touch on one last thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go.
come on, please.
Pat, you are moving into a different season. You've moved into Jamaica, and we want to talk about that succession planning. Just a few words on that. How do you go into that next phase? You know, the rich legacy that you have, and you know, 30 years ago you started that. And for me, we're still looking at the church and they still haven't caught, they still don't have the blueprint, right? So how are you passing the baton, and how do we leave that legacy? How do you go off into Jamaica, live your life, but make sure that we don't lose this. We
don't regress.
Yeah.
Okay, two things. I mean, I feel sorry for my queen, Claudine, my wife, and because we have 2 biological children, but I have about 100 plus other children, and unfortunately, she's got to share me with all of them. I have untold spiritual children, untold community children, and these are the kids who came out of these community projects, took our DNA because we taught them, we shared of ourselves, we gave them golden nuggets which they drank and helped steer them through life. And when they finished school, 2, 3, 5 years later, they're still coming to us and saying, well, like they'd want direction of which university they should have or go, or where should they, which job should they take. They've got this option. What would you suggest? What your advice? And so they're still in our lives and come back for steering and guidance. And we freely give. Something I forgot to say with the church as well. Every week, Katrina, every week, when those kids came, we fed them. What do you want this week? Do you want Chinese? Do you want Caribbean? Do you want McDonald's or Morley's? Do you want pizza? Every week. And remember, as Cory was saying, Des, we didn't charge them a penny. And we fed them. Because we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul and so forth.
So
the social impact is about putting back
invest in them.
Really invest. And one thing which was really it got me almost choked up was we fed them, we dropped them home and took them home. We rang their parents and said, listen, we've run over time, but don't worry, we'll drop them home and so forth. And we dropped them all home. And this is week in, week out. 10 years on, Cory, 10 years on, I meet them up at this function and that function, and I'm finding, Katrina, they're now dropping me home.
That's beautiful. Poetic.
And they're taking me out to lunch, to dinner, so they're paying for my dinner, paying for my lunch. Now, it's not that I was invested in them to look for this, because you just do this because you love
they
kids.
want to show you back you invested in them.
Cory,
it's like that this when you first take your parents out for a meal and you're getting the bill.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you.
Let me pay for that.
I was going to say, my older girls, my daughters, I nurtured them, grown them from they were like this, and now they're taking me to dinner. You know what that feels like. And when my daughter's like, can I have the check? I'm like, okay, that's good. Feels great.
I'm talking, these are my spiritual children and community children. I'm not looking for that from them. Now I'll have the bill, as you're saying, which we used to do that freely for them. They're doing it for us out of that
you've
love.
sowed into them now comes back.
There it is, Des. There it is.
And,
so are you saying that the legacy, saying that the legacy is through, that is it?
That's what I'm trying to say, Katrina, right? What you're looking at is how we have lived, how we have mentored and coached these people. Remember, you want your children to become better than you.
Of course. And every parent wants that.
Absolutely.
That's,
fundamental. Every parent wants their children to outdo them. You've seen, I've showed you, I've taught you, I've poured into you my DNA to be a leader, to be a champion, to own your own business, to earn 10x my wages, and so forth. I want you to become more
take
than
risks, to be the entrepreneur that I might never have been.
Come on now. Come on now. So the vital nature of legacy is literally that. What have I poured in you to become? And St. John 4, I think it is 12. St. John 4:12, 1:12. God has given us the power to become. And we stop that verse right there. This is to become sons of God. But in that sonship, in that becoming, it's whatever your proclivity, whatever you fancy, whatever your skill set is, whatever your passion is, to turn and become the best you that you can be. And you've seen how we have steered and guided. You see how we've given back. You know, something that's very, very important, you know, and is that we, historically, Katrina, we've always provided a platform for our employees. In our 30 years of entrepreneurship and business, we have employed over 10,000 people.
Wow.
And those who have been employed in our offices, the average years that they've stayed with us is between 12 and 15. Because we create a platform, we create an environment where they're totally relaxed, totally able to fail, and they're not going to be scolded by them, because that's how we've learned, and that's how we've taught them to be. Go and have and try and and become this. And if it don't work, we're not going to kick you out, but pick you up and go again. And we say, well, everything about failing is not failing, because if you were in a laboratory, we call failure an experiment.
Absolutely.
This experiment number one,
It's a learning process that helps you for the next.
the next one, so we
Next
go
round.
again.
Next
I would
round,
put
yeah.
a little less of this powder and a little more of this powder, and we call it experiment number 2. We go again. And looking at things like that, and looking at failure as experiment, as market research,
As experience.
as learning opportunities, we don't label it failure. We label it growing opportunities to become better the next time and next week. So that legacy process is about handing down to the next generation, or to the next guy who has that little something about him, or that young girl who has that little something about her. It's about nurturing that person to become the next leader, become the next entrepreneur, become the next big thing out there. And all I'm doing is laying that carpet, laying the guidelines, showing you how you can become. And it's never to get intimidated. Why? You want your children better. You want them to be, you want them to outdo you.
Yeah.
And having that sort of an attitude and that mindset builds trust. It builds better people, and they will outstrip you, because you want them to stand on your shoulders and stand taller than me, become greater than me, because I'm going off the scene. There are less years in front of me
Than there are.
than there are behind.
More behind than there are in front. Absolutely. Yeah.
And now you have loads of years in front. You carry on my legacy.
So I guess
build
this takes us on to that next stage. So that's how you work on succession, building up the generation to
There it
come.
is.
But I think one of the things we spoke about before we came on air was, at what point do you say enough is enough? And that's a problem that a lot of ministers have, because
go.
somehow this mantle, this thing that they were given, they think it's for them till death do
they
them
don't
part.
wanna let
They
go.
at my
They don't wanna let
paws.
go. They're standing in the way of the next bright light.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. And I think you being there, Katrina, is about saying, as was it Jesus or Paul that said, I will decrease and you will increase. It's very difficult for a head to say that unless that head has the heart of a father.
Yes.
Do you know, it's funny actually? So again, when you look in, and not all of secular business has this, but one of the things that we were always hearing as we were coming up in business was, well, what's your exit plan?
Ah.
Yeah.
What is the exit plan? And there was a period where we were just like, exit plan? What's
What's that
exit
about?
plan?
What's that
What we
about?
want an exit plan for? We're just running the business and hey, life is good. But it's not until you really sit down and understand that the succession is important.
Absolutely.
And you don't want to be doing this forever. You want to be able to be young enough and strong enough to be able to enjoy the exit,
Yes.
but also be able to sit there as an older statesman or person and provide experience to the next group coming up.
A vital point you made, Katrina, with that, and me being in Jamaica, right? I'm young enough to still have that vision and the strength to do and to build and to help. And I find in bringing my skill set, my experience, my expertise, and all of that I've learned, and bring it back to the motherland, and now being able and wanting to build them, build that, and you have the power to do it, now's the time. It's not, and I don't believe in retirement.
Neither do I.
I believe in transit into another stage, another chapter of your life, where you're going to become in a different role. That father role, you're now fathering a new community and are showing them all of this that you've learned, your expertise, your experience, and all of that great stuff is now being shed in the motherland, right? Remember, the motherland was stripped, and they talk about the brain drain. Stripped and taken and gone to the UK, US, and Canada primarily. And I say it behoves us, and it's a great legacy for the Windrush generation to see the children and the grandchildren of Windrush go back with that expertise, the education that they wanted us to have, and to become better than us and earn more than they did, and bring it back to the Jamaican and to the Caribbean and build our motherland, a mother country to
Return the
become.
sacrifice.
You are literally returning. They talk about Africa 3 or 4 years ago, the door of return, because that door of no return was shut, and how many 400 years of slavery and what have you, they've now opened back that door, and the door of return is about returning and build and becoming. And if you see the amount of returnees that are over there now, the amount of expertise, the amount of economic contribution, and all that thing that we're bringing back to the motherland, it's amazing to see. And that's where you have legacy. What they started, we're finishing. It's amazing.
Well, I think that's it.
Yep.
I mean, we're certainly going to invite you back. I know we'll have to wait until you come back into the country.
I'm good on Zoom, bro. Whichever way you want it, man.
You know, I think we're gonna do a deeper dive on this succession and planning. I think it's something that churches really need to, pastors for sure need to consider.
Can I just say something on that, right, Des? The element of having a proper retirement package for them, because I think a lot of it is based around one, finances, but also the I might say prestige, because when you go from being a pastor, I remember one of my friends or relatives was saying the same thing. We were PKs. We held a high esteem, and then my dad died, and we became nothing after that. We had this prominence of being a PK, the pastor general, and we'd done this, and all of a sudden someone else arose because dad died, and we became nothing. And it was a huge, like, fall from grace and fall from glory, and we became just another person.
Ordinary.
The issue around a pastor stepping down and passing the mantle on, he's losing the finances he has, he's losing the prestige he has and that position he has to become another man. There must be, as you said, about that passing on that legacy. Pass on a retirement package, and give him that recognition of the years
Yeah.
that he sowed into this
Serve.
kingdom.
Serve.
Give him that platform always,
Yeah.
as long as he lives.
Yeah.
Make him not be want of anything.
Yeah.
Because he served you.
Yeah.
It's your time to serve him.
Yeah, it's like presidents. You're always a
I was
president.
going to say secular world
100%.
with biblical principles,
100%.
and they do it better.
Absolutely. They're always president.
Yeah.
They don't lose
Always.
that status. And they still have
Security.
the security
Yeah.
follow them everywhere.
And the pay packet, and
Yeah.
And the money is very, very important.
Let's bring this to an end here.
Yeah.
It's been lovely, man. It's been
Yeah,
really,
Pat,
really
thanks
awesome.
for coming
Yes.
down.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
It's been enlightening, and
Yes.
it's always refreshing when you kind of like minds come together, and especially that creative mind.
Yeah.
How good
Yeah.
and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. We don't do this enough.
Yeah.
I may have seen your face before on the circuit.
Yeah.
I've never sat down and spoken on this level with you people. And I think this needs to be done much more because iron sharpens iron. I'm leaving here better than I came in. And I'm hoping you all are as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed.
Make space for this, just this level of interaction.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because we sharpen each other.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's a fantastic place.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Kat, do you want to wrap up with the?
Absolutely. This has been so rich. Pat, thank you so much for coming.
You're more than welcome.
Des, Cory, always great. And I'm so excited about where this podcast is going to go. And so like, subscribe, share. Don't forget to spread the word, and we'll see you in the next episode.